I'm Jim Lancaster. I'm CTO of Sagiss. The term end of life means end of support from Microsoft. So they have several versions of that. One of them is end of regular support, which means that you can no longer get patches for free anymore. So and then for some of their bigger enterprise customers, like, think of General Motors in this case, they can continue to get patches, but they've got to pay for them, and that's very limited circumstances. But for the vast majority of us, end of life means that Microsoft no longer releases patches and no longer provides telephone support for their products. It's not just Microsoft that stopped supporting it, it's the vendors that write software for that operating system too, which is maybe more important in some cases. In 2008 came out and they made a lot of changes to the user interface. Some of them were very awkward, so probably a year later, maybe 18 months later, they came out with the 2008 R2 that fixed those UI issues, made it look and feel more like Windows than the original 2008 release. It was a very good operating system, very stable, very robust, and it ran for a long time. But software gets old. They quit supporting it. Time to move on. To me, my primary concern about a 2008 server would be security. Would be, how do I protect it? How do I keep hackers out of it? That sort of thing. That software was not written to withstand the kind of punishment that servers are taking now out on the internet. It wasn't hardened to the degree that servers have to be hardened now, and I think that security, if nothing else, security would be the principal concern for somebody who's considering whether or not to upgrade that 2008 server. These are the same concerns of compliance. It's a compliance issue too, but the compliance is really related to security. How do you maintain any kind of compliance on an obsolete operating system? And the answer is you can't. So whether you're HIPAA regulated or you've got insurance compliance, or you've got customers that are requiring you to be in compliant with their whatever IT requirements, you're not going to be able to meet any of the compliance requirements on 2008, and it's principally because of the security, lack of security. The reality is we live in a global economy, and so while you can say that we're not under the regulations of GDPR here in the United States, it's a European regulation. The fact of the matter is that if you do business with anybody in Europe, in the European Union, you have to be GDPR compliant. So the newer versions of the server are GDPR compliant, but in 2008, obviously it's now 11 years old, 11-year-old operating system. So it was created long before any of that. And what's interesting in this case is that Microsoft, we have an option that we didn't have really before for the last upgrade. Microsoft is really encouraging folks to consider Azure. So instead of buying server hardware like we did maybe for this generation in 2008, instead of buying a new server and buying the server OS and buying the client access licenses and doing all of that, they'll essentially give you the server license and the client access licenses if you move your server up to Azure. Now you're paying rent on the server, but it is where things are going. It is more secure. People will make arguments about whether it's more cost effective to be on Azure or not, but I think it's really more about security, about stability, about maintaining accessibility to it. What's built into Azure now is this idea that you should be able to get your data from anywhere. So it's really, the whole thing is built from the ground up for kind of universal access. For day-to-day operations, there's really no reason to have a 2008 server online.